Hello and welcome back to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. My name is Kyle Golding. I'm your host, and I'm here today with Allison Conti from Watkins-Conti Products. We'll explain what that means in a minute. First, hello, good morning. Good to see you, Allison.
Hi, good morning. So good to see you too.
So happy to have you on the podcast. You have been a member and associated with Oklahoma Venture Forum for quite a while. Anyone who's attended our meetings has probably seen you. Won a few awards, nominations, and victories from the Oklahoma Venture Forum. So you've been a part of the Oklahoma ecosphere, business ecosphere for quite a while.
Yep. I love it. It's a great organization.
And now we finally have you on the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. I've always wanted to be on the podcast.
That's right. And you'll be presenting. You'll be our Power Lunch presenter in December 2022, talking about patents and IP, intellectual property.
Yes.
Something you know really well.
Well, I've learned a lot over the years.
You're ingrained in that process for sure, right?
Absolutely.
So let's give people the background real quick for yourself. Okay. You're an entrepreneur, an inventor, public speaker, now a podcast guest, right?
Yes.
And you are one of the founders of Watkins-Conti Products, founded 2015.
That's right.
And Watkins-Conti Products is devoted to innovation and development of affordable, effective solutions for common life-altering difficulties encountered in today's environment.
That's right.
That's a mouthful. That's a lot. But you have a product, specifically a flagship product, and maybe some other support products. So tell us a little bit about Watkins-Conti as a company and the products that you manufacture.
Okay, so we're a platform women's healthcare company. We're based in Edmond, Oklahoma, and started the company just really out of a need that I had. I had a debilitating issue with stress urinary incontinence after having an 11-pound baby. So was looking for a solution for myself. Really couldn't find anything viable for myself. I mean, there are surgical options and really invasive options, and then there are, adult diapers and pads, and that definitely was not something that I was interested in. So yeah, developed a 100% medical grade silicone vaginal insert that just places pressure right at the bladder neck, preventing involuntary leaking. So that's our flagship product. And then we've also written
into... That's the Yōni.Fit?
That's Yōni.Fit,
right,
yes.
Yōni.Fit.
Yes, so we've done a lot of work on that. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of our intellectual property portfolio, we've expanded upon vaginal inserts that can do other things, such as diagnostics, administration of medication, among a plethora of other things. So yeah, it's been quite a fun ride. And
this issue, the issue that Yōni.Fit addresses, this is a problem for 1 in 3 women worldwide.
That's right.
So a huge worldwide population is affected by this issue.
That's right. Those are the women that'll even admit it.
Right.
Some of the doctors say more than 50%.
It could be more, right? Currently, females are 51% of the U.S. population, so a majority of the people in the country have the potential to be affected by this issue, thus could be benefit from your product.
That's right. I mean, that's why after I figured out a solution for myself, I was all in on it because I knew, one, how debilitating it was psychologically for me. But two, whenever I realized how many people were impacted, I thought, okay, this is what I've got to do.
So the first rule of business is figure out a way to solve a problem, right?
Right.
You can always make money if you can solve a problem, and that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of just thinking. I went to the Mayo Clinic website and started reading about anatomy and tried to figure out really just how to solve my own problem. And then, yeah, it's just really grown.
So let's back up a little bit to you personally. Your background, where you grew up, your education, and how any of that, if at all, benefited you when you started down this path of trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, so I was born in Austin, Texas, raised in Pampa, Texas.
Okay, well, we won't hold that against you.
Thank you.
You escaped Austin, thank goodness.
Right, I could not afford to live there right now. Yeah, so I actually don't have a college degree, but I was raised in an environment with a lot of entrepreneurs. So my grandpa is an entrepreneur, my dad, both my brothers are. So I think really just sitting at, the dinner table, listening to their, stories, whether I wanted to or not, I learned a lot about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
So
a lot of good influence comes from the people that raise us and that we grow up with, right?
And, whenever you're hearing challenges and then facing them as an adult later in life, you can just have that experience of knowing that anything can, you can overcome anything.
Did you have an epiphany, a light bulb moment as you were researching for this product that you couldn't find and deciding, well, if it doesn't exist, maybe I can be the person who makes it exist? Was it immediate or did it take a while?
The light bulb moment was whenever I was doing kickboxing. And I'm not sure if this is uncomfortable for you because we're talking about female pelvic health.
It's reality, right? It really happens and to real people.
Yeah. So most women have used a tampon before. And so on my menstrual cycle, when I was doing, kickboxing, which is a lot of jumping and plyometrics,
sure.
I recognized that I was leaking less urine. And so that was the moment where I was like, well, what in the world? How is that? Why? And so that's when I started researching how does that work? Why, why did that happen? I knew that, a cotton vaginal insert wasn't going to be something that you could use every day, all day if you needed it. But that was kind of the trigger for me of thinking, a vaginal insert, interesting. So
you identified a problem, identified that the solve for that problem didn't exist, thus created an opportunity, a business opportunity, an opportunity for you to pursue a potential business.
Yep.
And from that idea to the company that exists today, you're way far into the process. There's a huge amount of story we need to get from deciding you were going to start a company or develop this product to where you are today. So start us down that path after you decided to do it.
All right.
Did you go for funding first or for partners or for manufacturing?
First, I used all of my life savings.
Again, as typical with entrepreneurs, that's exactly what you almost have to do to invest yourself in the process.
So filed for a patent. Then
was this patent based off something that you were designing, or were you working with an industrial designer that you sketched out?
So I sketched it out, and then I went to see a woman in Catoosa, Oklahoma, and I paid her $600 to draw it up in CAD.
Okay.
And then I manufactured a prototype just out of rubber, so it wasn't like a medical grade silicone. Then I actually tried my own product to see if it worked. So I went to kickboxing. So
you had an idea. You understood you needed to create some protection, some legal protection for this idea as you were prototyping and developing and just sort of essentially working through the process.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier you don't have a college degree. This is not your background. You're not an engineer or an industrial designer. So how did you go from this really needs to exist to I'm going to be the person that makes it?
Well, I started talking to doctors about it, and because I wasn't sure if it was just my body type, and so I literally scheduled appointments with doctors as a patient because I had a hard time getting in, and then I took an NDA with me.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And then
it's not very often I would say this, but I wish I could have seen that. By the way, doctor, can you sign this NDA?
It was interesting. And I'm surprised that a couple of them actually signed it. But I knew as soon as I brought the prototype out and I saw that light bulb go off in their head, I knew I was onto something.
Gotcha.
And so at that point, I recognized that, this was greater than just my own personal need.
Right.
And yeah, so from there it just grew. I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. The doctors kept telling me, they were like, you have to go through the FDA approval process for this. It is very expensive. It's very hard. I had no idea what to do. So I flew there with my daughter on my lap, and my mom came with me, and she babysat while I went to a public conference at the FDA, and I started shaking hands. And I still work with some people that I met there 7 years ago today. So that's kind of how I started to develop the regulatory strategy to move forward with that portion of it. So there are two major facets of this project to make it successful. One is the intellectual property, and the second is actually having the license to take it to market from the FDA.
Right. Something that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, et cetera, they don't have to go through this level of regulation, of approval, et cetera, right? So often many people can start a business, right on the spot with zero interaction with the government. But when we're talking about medical devices, there's a huge amount of approval and
That's right.
red tape that you had to go through, right?
Right. You have to prove it works. You have to prove that it's safe. I mean, if you're going to take anything, that's going to claim to fix a medical need or help with any kind of a medical issue, you have to prove that.
So you started that process in 2015?
So that process started in 2016 is whenever I went to the FDA, and then we conducted a feasibility study at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center the end of 2017. So we studied 15 patients, and our product worked for approximately 87% of the women. So I knew I was on to something.
Sure.
But we did have to redesign a little bit. Based on some things that we learned there. We actually took that information with our, engineering testing that we had to do, some biocompatibility testing, and then took that to the FDA, thought we were going to get clearance, and they were like, nope, sorry.
They gave you a whole new set of parameters you have to jump through?
Whole new set of hoops.
Right.
So, yeah.
So in order to make all this process happen, you needed funding.
That's right.
You had to raise money.
Yep. So
give a little bit of insight as to what it's like to be working on that process and fundraising at the same time.
Challenging would be a word. So thankfully,
and something else you had not done previous either. So
that's right.
You're doing all kinds of new things in first and taking these challenges on all at the same time.
Yep. I think that it just kind of came through in my discussions with people. Like, it's really probably not anybody's dream to be the urine leakage lady. So that passion, I think, just, that's
but there's opportunity there.
That's right. But I did have lots of conversations with people. But the very first support that I had outside of family was just a couple guys I went to high school with, that made a nice real estate investment, and so they took a big risk. So first,
so you did a friends and family
round. I also needed to bring on some experts, just because obviously I can't do this by myself. So didn't have any cash, but started issuing restricted stock to doctors and intellectual property people and FDA, experts, just so that would kind of minimize the risk for our investors. So, but my very first investor was my mom, aside from myself,
Fantastic.
And I have to say that because it's just, thank God for moms.
Right. But when you are seeking outside investment, one of the first questions they'll ask you is how much have you invested in? Are other people, are you really invested, or are you just simply trying to relieve other people, of the risk and put their money in as well? So you had to do a combination of those things.
That's right. And then as soon as we got some doctors investing, that's when it really started to roll.
Right.
And I guess validated the concept for and minimize the risk for some of the others.
Right. Because we are talking again about a medical device. It's
right.
something that is going to ultimately be hinged on whether or not the FDA were to give you that approval to put it to market, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the MDs behind that certainly help that process along as well.
And validated,
right.
Just the market need and that women desire a non-invasive solution. I mean, they make a lot of money on surgeries. So for them to still recognize that there is a need for something that's a little more holistic, I think was interesting. So
now you have a product that's going through this process.
Yep.
You have advisors, you have members of your board, you have investors. How do you organize all this together into a company and then continue to add additional IP to support the company as a whole, not just a singular product?
That's a really big question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you just hire people that are smarter than you, listen to their constructive criticism, and then just work towards, pivoting if necessary. I think that it's really important when building a company that you don't just get a bunch of people that are your cheerleaders.
Right.
You have to have people that are going to have these conversations with you that are not easy.
Right.
And you have to be willing to modify, right, and pivot. And, so there's been so much personal growth, but also just the company's grown from that as well.
So we've been talking about 2015, 2016. It's a continual process. You apply, the FDA tells you a whole set of different things you have to do again. You're making adjustments through clinical trials. You're doing all of this. This is 2022. We're very far into this journey.
Right.
but you're getting to a point now where things are becoming very, very real.
Yes.
Because you have gone through that process. So how do you feel now when you look back at going back to the original, I have this idea, and maybe you started, sketching and trying to figure this out, to where you are today? How does this make you feel, being that person at the center of this process?
Yeah, as I'm putting it, it's interesting because I was actually thinking about that last night, because it's been such a long road. We started our FDA clinical trials that they requested that we do at the end of 2019. And so in 2020, here we go. We've got clinical trials rolling at NYU. Boom, COVID hits. That's when I really started to expand our intellectual property portfolio, because our clinical trials stopped.
Right.
And then, so it's been a 3-year clinical trial, which is a really long time. But I don't know, it feels so rewarding now, because I'm compiling everything. I'm putting it all together. I'm talking to strategic partners. I'm planning to scale. I'm planning to go to market. I'm trying to get medical device manufacturing to the state of Oklahoma.
Right.
If we can do that, it would be great, for our economy. So that is it's so exciting. I mean, it's still a lot of really hard work, but I don't know, I thrive on that, I guess.
But you're dealing with different things now, right? It's manufacturing, distribution, eventually marketing,
That's right.
sales, and then that whole process as well. So you'll have a very robust set of activities happening around Watkins-Conti. I was hoping I could make it. Can I make it through the whole episodes? Watkins-Conti Products.
Yes.
So fantastic that this is finally getting to a place to fruition, this journey. And again, as I started the conversation today, I want to remind everyone at the end of this conversation that it's typically not easy. If it's worth doing, it's not easy, right?
Right.
And the real entrepreneurial pursuit is a long process. There's a lot of things that changes. There's a lot of things that look like they're brick walls that you have to work around and make those adjustments, and
absolutely
bring other partners in collaboration and adjust to what the market's willing to give you, et cetera. Then COVID happens and everything changes all over again. I think this is the more realistic expectation that entrepreneurs need to have, but then seeing the success is also important too, because you can work through all of these hurdles and setbacks and still become a successful business with products and additional IP and other things that go along with it.
Yeah, it's funny because it's, a lot of times you feel like you're in the trenches. I mean, things happen,
right.
And you're so heavily reliant on so many other people that things happen. And, sometimes, I'll be like, I've just had a really hard meeting, and then I'll run into somebody and I'll say, congratulations on everything. And you're just like, thanks, because I don't even feel like, So yeah, it's definitely, perception is not reality. The
entrepreneurial life is exciting, but it also is definitely a grind for sure.
It is a grind, but at the end of the day, it is so worth it.
Right.
So, I mean, my daughter during COVID was 5, and she's sitting on my lap in these meetings. I'm a single mom. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, things like that just during the time felt exhausting, and I felt like I needed to apologize. But now I look back and I think, wow, what a wonderful experience for all of us, my son included too.
And I think a key takeaway for everyone listening to this podcast is there isn't a single way to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. There's not a single way to fundraise or to take in investors or to develop your idea into something real. There's multiple paths. Sometimes it's having your daughter sitting on your lap. Sometimes it's, just slipping an NDA to a doctor who thinks you're in for a checkup.
A pelvic exam.
Doing whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
And not necessarily depending on a singular way of developing a successful business.
That's right. And you get a lot of no's.
Congratulations to you on that for making it through that process and getting to this side of it.
Thank you.
So our guest today, Allison Conti, a inventor, a entrepreneur, a patent holder, a success story, and our presenter for December 2022. We will be discussing patents, IPs, and all of the things that come with intellectual property. Thank you for spending a few minutes to tell us your story, the process, and give people an idea what to expect at our December meeting.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.